It still hurts now. You'd think after nearly 20 years as a professional footballer that dealing with setbacks would get easier, but it doesn't. In all honesty, it never will. To give you an idea of how difficult the week has been since our 1-1 draw with West Ham, I want to go back to November 2007 when England played Croatia at Wembley. That's the only other time in my career where I have experienced such wildly different emotions so close together. That night should have been one of the best moments of my career. As you'll remember, we were losing 2-0 but fought back in the second half and I scored our equalizer. What a feeling. There's a picture of Joe Cole and Frank Lampard running to celebrate with me, but they couldn't catch up. I was lost in the moment, screaming and shouting with emotions pouring out. To be the man who sent England to a major tournament? It's one of those things you dream about as a kid, something that is difficult to top. But 12 minutes later, Mladen Petric scored, Croatia won 3-2 and we were out. Elation became devastation and the dream was ripped away. The swing of going from such a high to such a low is almost impossible to comprehend. Sitting in the dressing on Monday, my emotions were the same as that night at Wembley. It had been a long time between goals this season, so when I scored to put us ahead so late in the game I really thought that was going to be it. We'd win in 3 points. Would boost our survival fight. I was pleased to score and I think the over-exuberant celebration reflected that. The celebration had nothing to do with becoming Stoke City's record scorer in the Premier League. It was born out of frustration for the club, the fans, the team, the city and the situation we find ourselves in and should never have found ourselves in. We have let them down. As I've been on the bench a lot this season I have understood how they have felt, helpless at seeing results slide by. So when I was thrown on I was desperate to make an impact. I'm sure you'll understand why I celebrated as I did. It was raw emotion and I got booked for jumping in the crowd, but I was probably lucky to escape a second yellow. I've got no memory of this, but Joe Allen told me I elbowed him in the mouth on my way to celebrate with the fans. I'd lost the plot. But then Andy Carroll did what Petric did 11 years ago. Fair play to Andy, it was a great strike but it was a killer for us. The dressing room was silent afterwards and it felt like we had lost. I couldn't sleep when I got back to my house as I was so wound up. Those extra 2 points were huge. You don't lose focus or lose heart when you return to training. We are all confident that we can beat Burnley tomorrow. But that doesn't stop you thinking about what has happened over the season or the position we are currently in. I've been in a relegation battle once before, with Southampton in 2005. It was a terrible but I have bittersweet memories. I only spent a season there and scored 16 goals after Christmas, which led to me winning my first England call. The feelings this time are more intense as I've been here for 7 years. This is home. I know everyone and understand how they are suffering. I see it in the face of a lovely old guy called Stuart, who works at the training ground and brings me oatcakes every day. Stoke is his life. It's embarrassing that we are in the bottom 3, as the position is everything opposite to what the club represents. When I talk to players who are considering signing for us, I always say the same thing: we are a well-established, well-run club with an owner who does not hire and fire on a whim. That was the sell. That was why conceding that goal on Monday hurt so much, as it has put everything in the balance. But there is still hope. We have 4 games left and nothing has been decided. We will keep fighting. Wenger legacy is untouchable. There have been many words and tributes devoted to Arsene Wenger in the last 24 hours and all are richly deserved. 6 weeks ago I wrote a column about Wenger and why the only argument about him should be, at what end of the stadium should Arsenal build a statue for him? I stand by that. He revolutionized English football and took our game in a new direction. I didn't have too many personal dealings with him down the years, but that didn't stop him impressing me every time I saw him. It goes back to when he had just arrived here and he'd go down to watch his youth team play the Tottenham side I was part of at London Kenny. Wenger went on to build arguably the greatest club side we have ever seen and his list of honors is remarkable. Yes, the last couple of years have been tough, but don't for a minute let that color your view about him. Nothing can take away from his magnificent achievements or his legacy. Save Wembley for the final. The FA Cup is a competition I have always regarded as my own. By that I mean it was the tournament when I was a kid and I have always had a huge affinity for it. It has changed down the years, though, and not always for the better. Take the semi-finals. I have memories of going to watch a couple of semi-finals at Villa Park and the atmosphere inside the stadium was incredible. Everyone was so desperate to get to Wembley you could almost physically feel the desire. Wembley should be the ultimate target. I've played in a semi-final away from Wembley, in 2006 at Old Trafford for Liverpool against Chelsea, and I've played in a semi-final under the Arch, 2010 for Tottenham against Portsmouth. There was no comparison for atmosphere. The only game Wembley should host in the FA Cup is the final, and that is what made it so special. In terms of who gets through this weekend, I hope Tottenham can go all the way. They are the best team of the 4 remaining and most in form. They deserve to win a big prize. Kurt Zouma has impressed me frequently this season, and he did so again on Monday when he was interviewed after the game at West Ham. He was asked if he was thinking about returning to Chelsea but explained that no decision will be made about his future until the season is over. Helping Stoke is his priority, as it has been since he first walked through the door. It would be easy for lone players to take a backseat in tough situations, but Kurt has been a good lad around the place. He has also been good on the pitch, and I'm convinced he will go on to be Chelsea and France's first-choice central defender. Everything you would want from a defender, he has got. Kurt is quick, strong, good on the ball, and his leap is absolutely ridiculous. We do tests in the gym to measure your spring, and he can get so high his head touches the ceiling. Really? He can be anything he wants to be. There was a period when we conceded a lot of goals that he found tough, but he came through it and picked up the gears again. I can see him doing that plenty more in the future. Forget Jose. Let's all hail more of the mastermind. The standout result last weekend left the focus on one club. Manchester United have not been out of the spotlight since losing to West Brom. I understand why the focus has been on Jose Mourinho and Paul Pogba and all the issues that surround them, but what about Darren Moore? The role he played in masterminding a 1-0 win against the odds has hardly been mentioned, and I want to put that right. When I joined Portsmouth as a 19-year-old, Moore was the first player I met at Fratton Park. I had never lived away from home at that point in my life, but I remember him taking the time to chat to me and explain about the area, giving me the best advice he could to ensure I settled quickly. We struck up a rapport, and he was a brilliant captain. Moore would not mind me saying he wasn't the most cultured on the ball, but he was a proper defender, a leader, and someone who I always thought would end up moving into coaching and management. So he will have absolutely loved getting one over on Mourinho. The situation he has inherited at West Brom is far from ideal, but he has calmed things down, and that resulted in such a composed performance at Old Trafford. I hope that he would do well after taking over from Alan Pardew. So to get such a high-profile scalp so early in his time as manager will surely help him in the long term. Darren is one of life's good guys, and he is someone you would want to see succeed. He has another big task on his hands this afternoon against Liverpool, but he has at least given West Brom some hope. Full credit to him. I'm delighted. I'd expect everyone else who has worked with him would say the same. What I've been up to. I received an unexpected compliment from Bayern Munich defender Mats Hummels, who told his 2.6 meters followers during a Q&A that I was the king of Twitter. Other than that, the weather has been delightful, so it's been the same for me as everyone else in the country. When we see a bit of sun, spend all day in it, burn ourselves, and then fire up the barbecue. WHO's caught my eye. Andres Iniesta looks like the little genius is moving to China at the end of the season, and that represents the end of an era for Barcelona. I played against him a couple of times, once for England against Spain in February 2007. He scored an unbelievable goal in their 1-0 win that night at Old Trafford, but he played even better. What I'm listening to. I'm a big fan of Miles Kane, and it is great to see him back with new music, and he's back with a bang with his track Loaded. That's been on repeat this week. Next up for me, everything will be determined by tomorrow's result against Burnley. Aside from training, I'll be working on my coaching courses and have 2 sessions to take with the kids at Stoke.